Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Stephen Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
What is up, One Up crew? Welcome into another episode of One Up Fantasy on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Stephen Johnson. He is Chris Jackle, and we are in week number 11 of 18. I'm still getting used to that 18, though we got that extra week tacked on at the back end, but the Bears are back in action this week. My teams are after everything's gone down. Do you have a good week this week?
No, it was fucking awful. I was on the high hog the week before singing my praises. Like, oh, it was great. You know, I don't even know if I lost. I think I lost one matchup. And then this week, I literally think it was the complete opposite. I won one. So it was awesome. And Josh E., thank you for kindly just pushing my you-know-what in, because I think I lost by like 100 points. So it was great. But week 11's here. It's a new week, a new day, whatever. Fresh start. Another injured running back. I think we have like 21 injured running back ones so far this year.
Yeah.
If you count, but I don't know who was counting. I tried, but it lost count. It was so fucking many. But how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I can't complain. Minus a half-point loss on Monday night.
Oh,
that was great. And not being able to get 9 points out of the Rams D and Darrell Henderson. Oh, man. You know, outside of that, it was just great. Just great. It's a brand new day, brand new week. You know, you go into something, you think you got it locked up, and the Rams go and shit the bed. And that's all there is to it. And that's it. Just move on. That's all you can do.
Who'd have thunk it, though? You know, I did not see that coming at all. You know, McVay wanted to be the smartest man in the room, get OBJ out there and try to show everybody how bright he is. And it just, you know, Von Miller and the boys couldn't get it done. And it was shocking, to say the least. I did not expect Kyle Shanahan to pull those rabbits out of the hat and get that type of thing going for them last night. It was a good game to watch for them if you're a Niners fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they were running on all cylinders. You're watching George Kittle getting back into action, and I tell you, he's looked like a different person the last couple weeks since he came back from injury. And like you mentioned, that defense for the Niners is a thing to be you don't want to mess with them whatsoever. I mean, they're a defense to be reckoned with. You have Fred Warner, you have Joey Bosa. Or Nick Bosa, one of the Bosa guys.
Nick is in San Francisco. Yeah,
Nick
Joey's
out.
He's in LA.
Joey's in
Chargers.
Yeah, he's bright lights just down the road from San Francisco. But they're hitting the health at the right time, and everything's rolling for them. So let's actually start there, because the LA Rams. I don't know what it's been the last 2 weeks, but here we are with 2 national broadcasts and 2 horrific appearances that have pretty much shut down every aspect of what people came to expect them to do fantasy-wise, with the exception of Cooper Kupp, who continues to catch balls left and right. I believe it was 11 receptions last night for around 120 yards, so another fantastic game from him. But the rest of the way, Robert Woods now out with an ACL. You bring in Odell Beckham Jr. Deep ball turns into an interception, and it's all downhill from there. Darrell Henderson really never getting going. Tyler Higbee dropping passes that turn into interceptions. And even on the defensive end of the ball, I mean, this is a team that went out and traded for Von Miller. You think, okay, here's the guy in the middle of this lineup when you already have to contend with Aaron Donald up the gut. You've got Ramsey out at corner, taking care of things on his own little island there. And yet here we are with a Rams defense that is now outside the top 10 for fantasy defenses. Obviously, the bye week coming at the right time, but what the hell is wrong with the Rams?
You touched on it earlier. I mean, I think Matt Stafford is just really it's looking like Detroit still in those veins a little bit, and it's unfortunate. They go, I think, with Matt Stafford. Obviously, they love to run the ball. Henderson has been great. I think Sonny Michel has had his moments as well, but outside of that, you lose Robert Woods, and I think he was the linchpin to that offense. And with the way that he played the game in their scheme, you bring OBJ to take place of him, and I don't know if you're going to get that same kind of production out of that offense. Yeah, it's a nice Ferrari to pull into the driveway, but I mean, I just don't know if they know how to actually use that, or is the Ferrari need another oil change? Because OBJ hasn't done much. I think he's got 10 touchdowns in the last 4 years. So I don't know, man. I'd like to say, and I said it earlier, Tampa Bay, super team last year, went into the bye week, I think week 13. They had lost a bunch of games going into that week, regrouped, and just went on a run. And as we saw, they went on to win the Super Bowl. But this year, their bye week's a little earlier, week 11. Is it just they need a break, regroup, and go into week 12? They have a tough schedule, though. They have some teams that I don't know is conducive to running off 5-6 straight wins. After the bye week, they have Green Bay, Jacksonville, Arizona, Seattle, Minnesota, Baltimore, and the Niners. So it's not getting any easier for them.
It's not an easy schedule.
They have the team for it, though. But I think Robert Woods, losing him is significant, and I feel like it's been underplayed so far, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny because at the beginning of the broadcast, there was mention that the MNF crew had talked to Stafford and said, I spotted the Titans 14 points a week ago. I can't let that happen again. And then no less than 5 minutes later, here's this deep ball to Odell Beckham where he gets bumped off the route. And I mean, he gives up. He just goes towards the sideline, nowhere near the ball. And it's an easy interception and a turnover that goes right back to the Niners, and they march down the field, literally running it down the Rams' throats. They didn't care about Aaron Donald being in that game. They said, okay, bet, stop us. And the Rams didn't. You mentioned that linchpin there, and it's funny because you look at what the scheme was for the offense without Woods in there, and I am going to butcher the hell out of his name. That was getting that was getting
Skoenronke.
Yeah,
I'll try to butcher it for you. The rookie out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, Skowronek.
Is that it? Skowronek. Yeah, I like Skowronek. That sounds better. Yeah,
and it's not a guy I was expecting to get that much playing time there. When in all reality, Odell Beckham didn't have a ton of time to get acclimated. Obviously, just a week. There's not much going on there. But even Van Jefferson really didn't get involved that much in this game, given where he's kind of been progressing throughout the course of this season. He only had 7 targets, 3 catches for 54 yards. So not necessarily that great of a performance for him. And at the same time, it's like between all of these changes at wide receiver, like you mentioned, the Detroit still being in Matt Stafford, throwing behind guys, really not having things there. I mean, it just kind of looked like a team that was just ready for the bye week and just said, screw it. We don't want to be here right now. We don't want to play. Just get us out of here, which I can't believe with all of the talent that they have that's even a thing. I mean, so moving forward, based on, the performances that we see, how confident are you in rolling out anybody not named Cooper Kupp on this offense given their performances the last 2 weeks?
So great question. And looking at this, I still think Henderson is a play. I think, if they're going to do anything, they need him to run the ball well, at least decently for Stafford to, the run game and the pass game hand in hand. You would think that if Stafford's doing well and the receivers are getting their targets, that means that Henderson and Michelle are doing pretty well, running the ball. At least there's a good combination of the two. But I still think Henderson's the guy. And like you said, Coop, I have Stafford in a couple leagues that, and I'm benching him moving forward until, I'm not comfortable with it. I just don't see it. I don't like OBJ to begin with. I don't think he's much of a fantasy play. And there's no results. So it's not like you can sit here and say, oh, he's great. He's done shit in 4 years, Cleveland and whatever. But, I just think.
So it wasn't Baker Mayfield this whole time?
No, Baker's not great. And I'm on a big Mitch Trubisky, Cleveland Browns 2020, 2022.
Where has that come from, by the way? I feel like that's just kind of bloomed out of nowhere.
So I saw on Twitter that they were saying the local media said that there's some people in the Cleveland fan base. I just read this on Twitter. I don't know this for fact. This is the internet telling me these things. Is that there's like a little groundswell for MT10 over there in Cleveland. And not for nothing, but I would love to see him go to Cleveland and try to right the ship. But I don't know how you bag Baker after he.
Yeah, I mean, for what Baker's doing, I mean, they're struggling though. That's the problem, and that's going to be the difficult thing for them to really bring together here over these next couple weeks is just stopping the bleeding that's been happening. Obviously, we saw the destruction in New England, which that was a hard one to witness on all accounts, and again in a very contensive AFC North, I should say. I mean, you got the Ravens, you got the Steelers, you got the Bengals. You can't sit back and wait for things to change because these are three teams that are going to give you their all week in and week out, both defensively and offensively. So, man, I tell you, I read that and I'm like, of all the quarterbacks, why Mitch? Like,
hey, I like it. It just sounds good. It's a match made in NFL heaven. It's got a nice ring to it.
It does. You got the misfits. Really, is what it boils down.
He's having a baby, which is great. Congratulations if you ever saw that. Sees this, but that's awesome. Wonderful, good for him. He's fucking young buck. But yeah, I just going back to the Rams though. Outside of Cup, are you comfortable with Henderson? Are you playing anybody else? Do you think OBJ's a play? I mean,
I think OBJ is in that emergency start territory where if you're dealing with the injuries, if you're dealing with this tail end of bye weeks, so we still have a couple weeks to go on them, that we could run into some situations where you just got to play him, especially in those leagues where you can start 4, 5, or even 6 wide receivers if you have enough flex spots across your lineup settings. And so Henderson, I mean, I think if the game script works well enough for him that, I mean, he brings that pass catching upside where you can't argue against it. Man, I tell you though, I don't want anything to do with Higbee ever again. I mean, talk about just a dud.
I still like Jefferson, though. I just don't know if I'd play him right now. I think he's the guy that you'd think would benefit. The targets were there. He just didn't produce. It was a shit game for them all in all last night. But I keep an eye on him. If you can get Jefferson.
Yeah, I would say Jefferson's definitely if you're in a keeper or dynasty league, a target that you want to go after now. I think he's got a really good opportunity to be that third-year breakout player. Robert Woods is a free agent. That's one other thing you have to keep in mind, that even if he does come back from this ACL injury, it might not necessarily be with the Rams, especially with his age and that injury. It's two things you really don't want to mix together.
He'll come to Chicago. He's old and brittle. Just, sorry.
Pain.
No, it's a new regime next year. But anyway, I digress. Where do you want to go
Well,
from here? We're in LA. Where do you want to go?
Well, it's okay. So we're in LA.
Yeah.
We had a couple other teams we wanted to touch base with. Let's talk with another team here that has done some signing of their own, but turning out to be a good signing, and potentially one that could make this team a hell of a lot better down the stretch, and really be the injection that they need offensively to keep things going. And that's the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton back in the powder blues. And I tell you, I didn't think he was going to do much on Sunday, but here he comes trotting out in these goal line formations, and he passes for a touchdown. He rushes for a touchdown. And I tell you, the overall energy that he brought to that team, PJ Walker obviously ain't it. He just ain't it.
It's a good story. He's a good football player, great backup, and that's good,
Yeah.
but he's not your starter. Good point,
Yeah. But regarding this, you've got a guy that likes to take off with the ball. You've got arguably the best running back in the game in Christian McCaffrey, offering both that rushing and that receiving upside. From that standpoint alone, do you see that meshing? And I know they played together before, but meshing to the point where it's a reliable option for what people anticipated CMC to be? Or is this new partnership or reunion, I should say, going to affect things in the running game that will ultimately negate what CMC brings to the table?
I think CMC is going to get his regardless. I think, if PJ Walker's the quarterback or Sam Darnold or Steven Johnson, I think, at the end of the day, I still think you could fucking turn around and hand him the ball. I think you could do that, or throw him something in the flat. I think he's a guy that you could plug in regardless of, he could play quarterback, for crying out loud. I'm not high in the Cam signing. I think unless he got a new shoulder while he was gone, I think what I saw here when he was in New England, and just the bashing that he took, through the media. Granted, the tape didn't lie either, though, because he just didn't look good. That's the same guy that is just warmer in a different color uniform, so it's like, it's great. And I love the story, and he's back and it's wonderful, but it's still it's not 2015. And with that, I just, I'm happy for Robbie Anderson. I think there's going to be something there. He's got a little more, he seems rejuvenated and happy. There's clearly chemistry there. He may be a guy that benefits a little bit, but it's still, we're not moving mountains, I think, with Cam Newton. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs even with this whole fucking new addition, but that's my take on it. What about you?
Yeah, I still definitely worry about DJ Moore. DJ Moore was a guy I thought was going to be the end all be all option in 2021, both in Carolina, as well as a threat to even contend for the yardage title at wide receiver as well. And that just has not happened whatsoever. And again, you mentioned there's not much to write home about from a passing perspective for Cam over these last couple years, and it makes you wonder, okay, well, where do you go from here with him, especially when you have these deeper threats? And for Cam, historically, a guy that liked to lock onto his slots, liked to lock onto his tight end players as well. I mean, hell, Greg Olsen thrived for years with Cam Newton in Carolina. I mean, that was a great living for him. Yeah. And then obviously CMC out of the backfield is going to offer up that option as well for him. So I'm still, the verdict is still out for me, that I'm not entirely sure what to make of the offense. And I'm curious to see what Matt Rule ultimately ends up doing with him as well offensively, bringing that college mindset, that college playbook with everything that he gathered at
Baylor.
I'm gonna blank Baylor. Thank you. And what he'll be able to do with a more mobile quarterback that Yeah, he had Teddy Bridgewater last year. Very accurate guy.
He had fucking Cam.
Did he though?
He did. He was. Remember they released him late in the preseason before the season started, and they had a chance to keep him when Matt Rule, I think, first got there. Isn't that how that all played out? Or was that the year right before Rule came there? But all I know is they're paying $60 million for, I think, 3 guys to not play there. Teddy Bridgewater and Cam's old contract and whatever the hell Darnold's making.
So March 2020, they announced they had given Newton permission to seek a trade. And then a week later, after failing to find a trade partner,
Matt Rule was there.
Yeah, so he was. So I guess, he
how fucked up is that? How awkward is that? Like, we didn't want you, but now we need you. So hey, come on back.
Like, by the way, come on back here. Let's get rolling.
What's he get, like
that
GMs?
is bizarre.
Yeah,
that is very bizarre. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I really don't.
I just think you're gonna, as a fantasy perspective, Stephen. I just think if you're playing against someone that's starting him, be happy, because I don't think you're not gonna see top 15 fantasy production out of Cam Newton. It was great to see him come in and play 7 plays and get that touchdown run and the pass, and again, it was wonderful. It's great.
So the question I have, though, because this is a 5-5 football team. They have a very good defense.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they're a half game out of that last wild card spot. I mean, they're right there.
Yeah.
And that Cam Newton's better than Sam Darnold. You know that he's better than PJ Walker.
Is he though?
Darnold's been bad. Darnold's been really bad. PJ Walker, I mean, is there anything that really screamed to you that he knew what he was doing out there? I mean, even in that game, even though it was a blowout against the Cardinals, it really didn't feel like he had it all together.
That was a tough spot. I just felt like he was trying to do too much in a game where he, it was out of hand, and you're just trying to make things up in one play, and he just put too much pressure on himself. But, I don't know. But yeah, to your point, I don't think he was the guy. He was not the guy.
Yeah, I mean, when you're only averaging, less than 6 yards per completion here as well. He's 22 of 29. So
do you think he throws for over 200 yards next week?
Who do they play?
Washington.
Yes.
Okay.
I think 200 is doable for especially now. No Chase Young in Washington. I think it's definitely doable.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could hit. I don't know. It's weird. It's just a weird situation. Yeah. I'm tired of the weirdness this year. I feel like everything is weird.
What it is. It's the NFL. It's fucking crazy, man. It's the injuries are just insane. I can't remember it being that way. Just the amount of guys that have been hurt. It's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like we talk about it every year, and every year just kind of like does the hold my beer thing and one ups itself. But it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Last stop, we'll stick in the powder blues here before we get to starts and sits and waiver wire pickups. The Tennessee Titans, a very unique case as well, leading the AFC South 7-2, somehow 7-2, maybe arguably one of the worst 7-2 teams to ever grace the NFL.
It's like the Bears last year when they were 5-1,
And you're like, what's really happening here? But here we are. Julio Jones on IR, so he's out at least the next 2 after missing Sunday.
Shit anyway.
He hasn't. That's true. We talked about him as a cut. He should be off your rosters if he isn't already.
He's on my IR right now. Who gave him a frick? I brought him in for a meeting, and I told him he better, Sorry.
Get his act together. Derrick Henry still out for at least 4 weeks, if not more. Probably looking on the heftier
He needs to
side
rehab
of that
like Russ, 19 hours a day.
Yeah, and man, I tell you, it's not looking too great in that rushing attack for the Titans that used to be so potent. And you could even argue the same thing for one AJ Brown, who has continued to draw double
Stink.
coverage, and he is now wide receiver 30 on the year in PPR leagues. 30. A number that I think has just kind of thrown a lot of people off. Is this cause for concern? We'll start with AJ Brown first, or is this just a matter of this is kind of what you get when you go and draft a guy with a low floor and high ceiling?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little from column A and a little from column B. AJ Brown he's had some great games this year. I think there's only been maybe 3 of them. Outside of that, he's been pretty bad. Tannehill has not been. He has not had the year that they thought that they were going to get out of him going in after 2020. You anticipated a big jump, even with Henry killing it before he got hurt. He was mediocre. I think he was. I don't even know if he was in the top 20 going into. Was it week 10 or week 9 when Henry got hurt? And it's unfortunate, because they'd be for real, I think, if you felt confident at that quarterback play, but they don't have that. And, now they're running back by committee. I know you like a guy in their backfield. Peterson obviously is more of a, hey, we need somebody. Vulture. Yeah. Hey, and if you can get those, that's great. If that's what you're relying on, then you're not really fighting for a playoff personally. But there are guys out there that you could probably go out and get on the waiver wire that will outproduce AJ Brown going into week 11. And we can talk about that later on. But I traded AJ Brown for Cordell Patterson the week that Henry got hurt. And I looked okay until Patterson got hurt this past weekend. I'm hoping that ankle's all right.
He was limited today. He was limited.
I know, and I'm pumped about that. I need that, believe me. And I think he wants to get out there because if he plays a full season, he's going to get some more money. And he's trying to, he wants to cash in, which I would love that for him and my fantasy team. But do you like anybody? Who do you like on the Titans? I mean, would you even play Tannehill as your quarterback right now going into week 11?
I would feel a lot more comfortable streaming quarterbacks based on defensive matchups. I think that's kind of the situation where you're at with Tannehill at this point in time, where you might have, I'm trying to think of a couple of the games coming
David Carr. Or Derek, I keep calling him David.
Go back to the Texans days. Just a couple examples here. I'm gonna pinpoint one specifically, like Jimmy G against the Jaguars this week. Would rather take Jimmy G. Honestly, Cam Newton against Washington. I'd rather have Cam Newton. Just because of that rushing upside, because of the fact that Washington is pretty weak in that defense right now, especially with Chase Young being out, like we mentioned. Another one, I hate throwing this one out because he's a guy, but that I have a love-hate relationship with. However, he has started to look much, much better. Mac Jones against Atlanta Falcons. That's another guy. So, I think if you play the matchups correctly, you find yourself with a much higher ceiling than what 100%. Tannehill can offer. And even looking at the rest of the schedule for the Titans, they get the Texans this upcoming Sunday, but past that, you got the Patriots who've been playing some very spirited defense.
Mac Jones.
They get the Jaguars that, that's again a fluff game.
Two-finger Urban is fucking got his guys playing well right now. They're coming off the dub.
But then it goes Steelers, Niners, Dolphins, and then wrap up with the Texans, which is a moot point for fantasy purposes. But if you got Steelers and Niners in your playoff matchups, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing. It's like, okay, well, what are you probably going to do with him, especially if you're holding on to him as a second quarterback. You got to ditch him. You got to find another positional player. You're dead weight if you got another option on your team right now. And if you don't, then God help you. Honestly, it's what it comes down to.
It's a good point. And it's just on top of, excuse me, all the injuries. It's just wild. Titans are just they're not a play. I think, you really gotta look elsewhere. I just wish we could bang, get some stuff done like Urban did over at his saloon, but let's stay away from the Titans and get away from the Titans and move on to somewhere else because, just like Urban's going to be doing at the end of the year, probably he's going to get canned. No pun intended. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough thing. And I would love to see Derrick Henry come back early, get on that Russell Wilson rehab, those 19 hours a day, and just try to get back. And that'd be wonderful. But, that's wishful thinking. But yeah, it's tough,
Yeah, and Marcus Johnson coming out of nowhere on the receiving end as well. I mean, of all these random ass people, but running game. Lastly, here, you mentioned Adrian Peterson.
They left somebody out
they brought in. They also did bring in Dante Foreman at the same time as Adrian Peterson, who, I mean, for both football and fantasy related purposes, has looked like the much better football player. And I'm not even going to include Jeremy McNichols in this. That is a train that should have never taken off. And anybody who was jumping on that bandwagon, God help you for what was going on there. But Dante Foreman, upside wise, are you looking at RB2 once he gets going? If he gets the baton there, do you think he gets the baton, or is this going to be in this limbo of this really weird three-headed monster that really doesn't offer much to the imagination?
It's tough. I think it's more like of a two-headed monster. I'm with you on McNichols. That was just a mirage, if you will. I think it was more clickbait type shit that just gave people something to write about. And they didn't know, no one knew, but it kind of played itself out right in front of our eyes. And with the eye test, you nailed it. Foreman looks, sorry, my phone is making a noise. It's looking great. I like him to some extent, but only as far as I can truly throw him again. We're still talking about the same team. We were just rattling about how I can't trust anybody. So I can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, I want to play him. But I could see him turning into something, because they're winning games. But I also think that you need, for that to happen, Tannehill needs to play better at the quarterback spot. If you don't get that, I think you're just going to be looking at like a pedestrian type of run game, regardless if it's a committee or a single back option. What about you?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, as far as the stash play that you want to have him on your roster. I don't know about the trust factor there that you can really rely on him at this point in time. But again, if the Titans continue to move their way forward here, again, 7-2, if they find themselves in some positive game scripts against these lower opponents like the Texans, like the Jaguars, it's bound to turn into an opportunity for that rushing game to get going and to see what ultimately they can do with 30, maybe even 40 carries as a unit if they're able to get out to an early lead. And I think Foreman would be the guy. It's just, can you trust them to get there when you need them? And I don't know if that's necessarily something you can do, but given the fact, again, we've talked about the injury history with the position at running back this year, that you need all the depth you can get, and the guy to bet on is Dante Foreman in that offense, plain and simple, with the exception of Adrian Peterson vulturing touchdowns. God help us all that he continues to vulture all these touchdowns and really cap that upside for Foreman so far in this system early on in really both their Titans careers, as they were both signed off of the street with Derrick Henry hitting the shelf there for this 2 to 3 months. So,
hey, speaking of betting, question for you. Over and under on the number of wins the Titans have at the end of the season. What do you think?
I'm going to...
We went over their schedule.
That's
we
tough.
know it's not there's a couple games, Texans at the end of the season. Miami, I think, is a tough game, in my opinion. I think they could be playing well at this time at the end of the year if things are going in the right direction. But
it's still crazy to think there's 8 games. Like, that's the thing I'm just wrapping my mind around. It doesn't feel like there's still 8 games here, but I think they'll end up going 4-4 and finish 11-6.
Okay.
I think that's doable given the fact that they have 2 matchups with the Texans still on the slate, and I think they can steal one as well from one of those other matchups to pair up with the Jaguars victory as well. So
that's fair.
They get Henry back at the right time. They start firing on all cylinders for the playoffs. I mean, that's a team that can beat anybody.
Absolutely.
If they get healthy at the right time, as like I said, we're seeing right now with San Francisco and the way that they're turning up the heat as things go along here for the good old San Fran 49ers making a run in the NFC West with everything going on out there. Talk about a cluster of a division. Conversation for another day, but we're going to flip the switch here and start talking some waiver wire pickups for week number 11. There are plenty of intriguing names. Got a 15-2 record here. Logan, come on. They are not going undefeated the rest of the way. Get out of here.
Can you smoke weed in the Philippines? Is it illegal? Logan? I mean, come on, man. What, 15-2?
Oh, man. I'd be shocked. I would be shocked.
Don't they have 3 losses?
Man, no. I mean, even in this deeper schedule, running off these streaks, and we've seen even the better teams run into walls here very, very, very quickly. So anyway, week 11, we got waiver wire pickups.
Yeah.
Let's start at the quarterback position. Okay. Who you got as your pickup for the week?
Ooh, I mean, there's some good guys out there. Obviously, we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that game against Jacksonville, you brought that up. I'm not going to steal that one from you. I like the Mac Jones chain right now going against Atlanta. He's rostered 21% of the leagues. I think what we're seeing last week was maybe it was his breakout game. I mean, he didn't throw for the yards that you would have liked, but 3 touchdowns. I think that is just something that we would have loved to have seen in Chicago as Bears fans when, we were talking about Mac Jones wearing, and we're much, we're happy with, who we have. And he's another guy, by the way, and Justin Fields is a player that you may be able to pick up, rostered in 22% of the leagues, playing against Baltimore, coming off a bye. Those are 2 guys that I think you could go out and get and stream if you need them, or if you're dealing with like the Kyler Murray situation where you don't know. I'm thinking he's going to play, hopefully, fucking for crying out loud. I've been fucking killing me. But I like Garoppolo more than Fields against Baltimore. So I think honestly, Jimmy G, and I said it earlier, rostered in 80% of the leagues. So he's out there. If you need a quarterback, go get him. That's my 2 cents. And, what about you, Mr. Johnson?
I want to go with a random player that has kind of fallen off the radar. We've talked about him quite a bit, but I feel like he can bounce back even bigger than what we saw in a really unexpected role in week number 10, and that's Tua Tagovailoa going up against the New York Jets. I'm still trying to figure out how exactly he went out there and played last week in willing the Dolphins to victory over Baltimore. Yeah. I mean, it was damn impressive.
Yeah.
8 of 13, 158 yards, and also adding that rushing touchdown there at the goal line. This is an opportunity that I think he will have a pretty solid start. The New York Jets are allowing points at an alarmingly historic rate, and I can't see it slowing down. You really look at his games overall this year, the number of points that Tua's been putting up has been pretty admirable.
Yeah,
Week 1,
absolutely.
17 points. He gets injured against Buffalo, comes back week 6. He's at 22, 28, 16, and then he totals up 12 there in less than a half against the Ravens. And so I think definitely getting 20-plus points out of Tua is in the realm of possibility and more or less a pretty good likelihood for Tua this week if you really need to plug and play a quarterback for what they have going on here. So, this is the other thing here. I don't want to piss off Baltimore defense going up against the Bears, but that's probably what the Bears are going to end up getting after laying a giant goose egg on national television on Thursday Night Football. But, you get what you get, I guess, is ultimately what it comes down to.
True.
Tight. No, why did I say tight?
Running backs. What's on your mind over there, Mr. Johnson?
I don't know. I'm just gonna keep my mouth quiet here.
Running backs.
Wayne Gallman. We're going to the Atlanta Falcons. We're gonna talk some Thursday night football. It's Falcons and Patriots. We're getting to, and of course, I like how they also bring up the Super Bowl, even though Brady's not there anymore, and they're hyping that up, and they got that new Brady documentary thing going as well, talking about it. It's like, man, just gonna keep rubbing it in Atlanta's face after all these years. But not looking like Patterson's going to play. I'd be stunned if he suits up on Thursday night after spraining his ankle on Sunday. I know I want him to play as well, but that's a tough thing. And let's get something straight. Wayne Gallman is better than Mike Davis. He has always been better than Mike Davis, and it's about damn time that the Falcons realize that Wayne Gallman is better than Mike Davis, as we've seen this decrease in what Mike Davis has been getting in terms of opportunities. And here we go with I hear you. But Gallman, 15 carries for 55 yards against the Cowboys, did have one catch for 21 yards. I can't imagine they get blown out as badly as they did against the Cowboys, and it should be Gallman with the opportunities in the backfield if I had to guess. The only concern I do have is Mike Davis potentially vulturing some goal line opportunities if it does get down to that. But at the same time, it's a desperation plug and a guy that you need to hold on to for now to see where the splits are going to go.
Okay.
How about you?
Analysis. That's a good breakdown, man. You're fucking always on it. I got to say, you're just, put it on a tee and crush it out of the park every time. It's in your blood, Just going to put that out there.
My blood.
And you talked about a great running back earlier, speaking of in the blood, Dante Foreman, I think rostered 3%. So he's an easy choice, right? But a guy that has been getting love all year, I think in the fantasy community, but not with his head coach and offensive coordinator, because he's always been like on the waiver wire, ups and downs. But, It's Stevenson in New England. I think, he had a great game last week. He gets in the doghouse. He does this. He does that. It's frustrating as a fantasy owner if you do roster him, which I am one that's had him in a couple. I have him in a dynasty league, and I'm going to stash. I'm going to hold him. He's actually on my on my taxi squad. But I like this matchup against Atlanta. I like Thursday Night Football. You don't know what you're necessarily going to get just because it's Thursday night. Fantasy production normally sucks Thursday nights. And then I think it speaks to what they did last weekend, moving that game plan hopefully forward. Not saying Belichick's going to do the same thing because he never fucking does 2 games in a row, I think, or never ever. He just never repeats it. But I think Stevenson rostered in 31% of leagues. Go out and get him if you can. If not, Foreman's the play. And I love your choice, man, of Gallum Jr. I think all 3 of those guys would be great pickups for you.
Yeah, and one other guy I want to plug in here as well. Jeff Wilson with the Niners.
Yes.
Elijah Mitchell breaking his finger. Not sure how that's going to go, but Wilson started to finally get
Look
touches.
good.
Wasn't necessarily productive, but he showed some burst
He had a couple
from
nice
that end.
runs.
So he did, and I think there's the possibility there. You could be looking at 15 carries for Jeff Wilson if Elijah Mitchell is not 100%. So that is something to keep an eye on there as the week progresses. If you can get the scoop on one Jeff Wilson now that he is back and healthy. Wide receiver, where are you at?
Ooh, slim pickings these days, right? It's tough. I still think, if you can get Darnell Mooney from as a Bears fan, I think it's great. Rostered in 45% of the leagues. Him and Elijah Moore, very similar production, kind of boomer bust, but I just like that connection that Mooney has with Fields. I'm a stacker, as we've talked about. So if you could go Fields and Mooney in a stream, and you needed somebody like you have, who's on a bye? Rams, and is it the Rams and the Browns?
Rams and Broncos.
Rams and Broncos. That's right. So if you had Sutton or Patrick and you needed a wide receiver and you could get Mooney, why not? I think he's a guy that demonstrated over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, that bond and that connection with Fields is also showing on the fantasy production. And it's like, he's a flex guy for you. And I think that's what you're looking for on the waiver wire right now. Hopefully, not your starters necessarily, wide receiver 1s and 2s, but that's the guy I'm looking at right now. What about you?
I'm going to go on the opposite side of the field here for this one. Rashad Bateman with the Baltimore Ravens, who, he's a little bit higher on the ownership, so this is kind of cheating things. But at the same time, he is just killing it. And he has carved out such a role in that offense. He comes up with 6 catches for 80 yards on 8 targets. I have a feeling that it's going to be Jalen Johnson going up more against Hollywood Brown on Sunday, which scares the living hell out of me that Bateman is going to be. I that is my biggest fear for Sunday as a Bears fan, that Bateman is going to have himself a day. And again, for the pedigree that he had coming into the league and the fact that he just fell into the Ravens' laps and is immediately, after missing a pretty large chunk of the regular season as well, in addition to the preseason, it's crazy to see how quickly he has adapted in that offense and carved himself a pretty sizable role. And so if he's still on your waiver wire, you need to go out, you need to grab him, because it's going to dry up very, very quickly before all is said and done. If I had to guess whatsoever, he's at 50% on Yahoo, so he's right there.
Okay, I picked Mooney and he's at 46, so it's not like we're right on the same page. And there's guys out there though, like you brought up, Marcus Johnson, rostered in 1% of the leagues. And then a guy that you talked about last week that had that huge 66-yard touchdown catch and run, Jamal Agnew, rostered in only 99%. It went up from last week, so someone obviously listened to you. So it's those percentages changed. And then lastly, I am going to bring up Bryan Edwards out in Vegas. I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. Had a nice touchdown catch last week. Somebody to think about. But we pretty much named every wide receiver on the waiver wire there, so that was pretty good. Outside of like Elijah Moore, or who else is out there? I don't even know. Michael Gallup.
Michael Gallup. That's another name out there. One other name is DeAndre Carter with the Washington football team making a name for himself, with Curtis Samuel being out and finding the end zone in a crazy upset against Tampa Bay, which I'm still not sure how they broke that up, but man, hell of a game. Like Tom Pelissaro
said, Taylor Heineke finishes off Tom Brady, and Twitter world was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it was great. But let me ask you though, tight ends wise, I mean, we talk about this every week, right? And it
Every week.
seems to be the same cast of characters.
Yep.
But when I look at the list, I see production. There's still 5 guys that I'm like, shit, I wouldn't be upset about getting my hands on at all. Who do you like?
Yeah, I don't want to keep banging the Dan Arnold drum because I feel like I've been down that path so many damn times. And if you haven't, it's on you to not go out and get him. I mean, it's PPR wise, he's been killing it. I just don't understand why you wouldn't go out and grab a guy that in 4 of his last 5 games, he's in double digits. That's something at the tight end position that doesn't exist. I'm going to go Logan Thomas, though. I think he's going to have a solid game here coming back from the IR. Had a little bit of a tweak issue with his hamstring coming back after he's missed quite a few games here. Missed the last 6. But again, the first 3 games of the season was in double digits in PPR as well. Going up against Carolina, there's not much else there to contend with the tight end. Ricky Seals-Jones is banged up. I really like Logan Thomas in a bounce back to get back on the field and put up some decent points.
Yeah, he looked the part at the beginning of the year. Good to see him back. I like that choice. I had a tough time with this one though, because there's so many guys, I could be like, oh, Cole Kmet. Yeah. But I like Conklin up in Minnesota, going against Green Bay at home, in Mini, in the dome. It's actually, they're not a dome anymore. So what am I talking about? But rostered in 34% of the leagues. I think he's a guy you can definitely go out and get. If you're frustrated with like TJ Hawkinson, who is like last week, given that big goose egg, which frustrated the hell out of me.
Hawkinson, Gesicki. I mean, 2 guys.
Goose eggs. Multiple leagues because of those 2 assholes. But they fell asleep in the team meeting last week. I knew they weren't going to play well, so it just really fucking pissed me off. I kind of expected it, to be honest. They got fined at practice on Monday, but whatever. Yeah, but I like Conklin. I just think had a good game last week. I like him. I think it's somebody that, again, we're talking about plugging and playing or dealing with a bye or an injury. Noah Fant's not playing this week with them on being on a bye. So, yeah, I think Conklin's a guy you could definitely go out and get. He probably won't cost you much money. You might even be able to wait till tomorrow morning to pick him up. Let it ride. Go for it.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and I 2 touchdowns last week for Conklin. Yeah. So definitely the opportunity there for him to be a safety blanket for Kirk Cousins there once they get down towards the goal line. You mentioned Cole Kmet. Baltimore is not good against tight ends. They just aren't. So, I mean, that opportunity does lie there, that it's, a chance to move things in the right direction. Maybe not look like an Adam Shaheen bust like he was starting to for the fair amount of the first half of the season. So, yeah, we'll see what he's got up his sleeve. See if he can build off of it. Well, we're gonna wrap up the show here with one final segment. We like to call it our sits and starts, otherwise known as glitches and cheat codes. That is right. We've got glitches and cheat codes, starts and sits if you want to be very prim and proper with them. But we'll run right down the list, going with quarterbacks, guys we want to avoid this week. And guys, we're like, okay, let's get things rolling. Should be a solid week for them. So who we got at QB? Start and sit.
All right. So I'm gonna start Derek Carr going against Cincinnati. I like that little shootout opportunity. I brought up Brian Edwards earlier, a couple minutes ago for a good reason, because going into this, I think you could see Derek Carr putting up some numbers. He put up numbers in a bad game last week. I think he's going to be throwing it as much as he can against Joe Burrow at home. I just think that's a good play. And my sit for the week is stay away from Carson Wentz. I think that train fell off the tracks last week, threw up a stinker against Jacksonville at home. And, now they're going against Buffalo. Do you really, really think Buffalo is the team you want to come and bounce back from? Do you expect him to bounce back from? I don't see it. I'm off on Wentz. I've dropped him actually in the one league I'm streaming QBs before we hopped on the air today, just because I got to find somebody else to go with. Probably Jimmy G, if anyone's listening in the league, probably the asshole that downvoted this, but yeah, nonetheless, that's my 2 QBs I'm going with, starting and sitting. How about you?
All right, I'm gonna go with you mentioned Jimmy G. I'm going Jimmy G here for the start. He won't necessarily get you 304 touchdowns, but I think he's got a very safe floor at a bare minimum of 250, 275, and 2 touchdowns. I think that's a very doable thing against this Jacksonville offense. Again, with the weapons that he has between Debo and Kittle, and if he can get Ayuk starting as well, should work out very well against the Jacksonville team that has obviously shown its pain points as the season has gone on. In terms of a sit, there's a couple guys that I really do not like, but I'm going to go with a collective group, and that is whoever the hell is starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the LA Chargers. I'm not sure if the COVID protocol will get Big Ben cleared in time for the game against the Chargers, but as we all know, the Chargers are a very stingy passing group. Against the pass, much easier to get them off against the run, and Najee Harris for a pretty solid day. Obviously a must start if you do have him on your roster, but in a passing scenario, also looking at probably short-staffed again with Claypool sitting this one out. It's an opportunity for the Chargers passing defense to really rile up what the Steelers can throw at them. So not a fan of whether it's Big Ben or half a skull Rudolph throwing the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Running back wise, man, there's a lot of plays I really like this week. Like really, really like. I feel like this is almost a must start if you have him here, but I'm gonna play him anyway because he just continues to go and go and go, and that's James Conner with the Cardinals. He's leading the league in touchdowns. He has been a force to be reckoned with. Should have even more opportunities to get things opened up with Kyler Murray, hopefully getting back on the field here this week and going up against a Seattle team that, while their defense has been pretty stingy, they have been giving up yards, and that's ultimately what it comes down to on the fantasy end. So I think there's the opportunity for James Conner to flirt with 100 yards on the ground in this one. Wouldn't shock me if he picks up another touchdown there. As for the glitch for the week, I'm going to stay within the same game. Okay. I don't care if it's Chris Carson. I don't care if it's Alex Collins. The Seattle run game has been so damn uninspiring the last couple of weeks. You have Collins, who I don't think he's been above 45 yards over the last few weeks here since Carson hit the IR. And again, a neck injury for Chris Carson. You're dealing with the potential threat between the incompetence of Collins trying to wean Carson back in, whatever the hell Rashad Penny can still do, and then Travis Homer, that there's nothing reliable here for the Seattle Seahawks and relying on their running game from a fantasy perspective. So really don't like much of anything there.
Yeah. All right.
How about you?
I like a rookie for my start here. I like Michael Carter with the Jets. Going against the Miami Dolphins. I just think, they have Ty Johnson for the passing game. That's great. But I think Carter is really showing over the course. I think that the last 4 weeks has really demonstrated that they made the right choice there with that draft pick coming out of North Carolina. I expect big things out of him moving forward. for the Jets. There's not much to cheer for there, but there's definitely some fantasy points that you can get out of the running game. There's some other guys that I liked. I just, I'm trying to find a diamond in the rough for you guys, but if you are looking for some points, I just like that matchup. You could also maybe look on the other side of that, looking at Myles Gaskin. It's finally a matchup you could look to see him go off on against the Jets. On paper, it looks good. My sit, though, I like your committee approach because I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking at the team playing against the Dallas Cowboys, CLE and Darrell Williams from Kansas City. I just think it's going to be a matchup that's just not helpful. I think you could end up being frustrated. You might actually end up seeing a little bit of Gore and McKinnon as well. You never know. I just think it's a game to stay away from, but especially with those two guys, especially after the game Williams had last week, over 100 yards receiving, almost 200 yards or 150 all-purpose yards, and 30 fantasy points. It's tough to sit a guy like that, but you have CLE coming back. It's just it's bad all around. I'd stay away from both of those guys. My glitch there, if you will. And I like this comment. We did talk about him earlier, but A.J. Dillon, definitely a dude to, if you have, start him. I think he's rostered in most leagues anyway.
Let's talk about A.J. Dillon. We haven't talked about him at all.
Sure.
Probably the next, we'll call it 2 weeks, could only be 1 week, with Aaron Jones's sprain not being as severe as what was initially anticipated. I'm not as excited about A.J. Dillon as a prospect as a lot of people seem to be, and thinking he's going to be some godsend this week. I'm really not.
I don't know, man. I think he's trended, though. I think trending, with the way the trends work for running backs, his touches have increased, his production's increased. He had, I think, 66 yards on the ground and 62 yards in the air last week with, I think, was it 2 touchdowns on the ground? And the week before that, it was another 46 and 44, I think, so another, I'm sorry, no, I lied. 40, I think it was 44 and 46 and 15. Either way, double digit fantasy point production both weeks, last week being a pretty big week. I just think the Packers, the way their offense is, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, fuck you, Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, you fucking dick. But I just, I think there cannot be, if you have a decent running back and you have that offensive, or you have that passing game with Aaron Rodgers, how could he not do well? He runs so fucking hard. He is a beast. I can't see him not getting like 50 and 50 and getting 100 all-purpose yards and getting you 15 fantasy points. If he gets a touchdown, then you're looking at 20 points and you're getting that off the, waiver wire. So.
All right. Yeah. One other one here as well. Alvin Kamara. I haven't seen anything this week that would say that he's going to be out, but the fact that there's been no news does have a little bit of uncertainty. He did make a weird tweet yesterday just said always blessed. That's all it said. So it's just really, I know, it's just really bizarre. You get people thinking, they just drop a couple words in social media and everybody goes wild. I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's obvious. If you want a must start, Mark Ingram. I mean, I'd rather have Mark Ingram versus A.J. Dillon if I'm comparing the two. If Kamara and Jones are out,
if they're both out, okay.
Yeah, if they're both out, like, give me Ingram over Dillon every damn day.
I don't know, man. We may have a difference of opinion here on this. I like that. Ingram's great. I just don't trust Trevor Seaman or whatever, Tresinian or whatever his name is. I just fucking, I don't see it happening. I can't. I scooped Ingram up, last week, and I started him. I got fucking killed, but I was Rashad, start Dillon over Renfro at your flex, in my opinion. But even though I like Derek Carr going against Cincinnati, I think A.J. Dillon's in for a big day. Speaking of Kamara, though, and I'm not a projections guy, right? But when I look at those, through the week, his is actually increased in what I've been looking at. So I feel like he's going to play. Not that that's a buy all tell all, because Kyler Murray and AJ, or fucking Hopkins were projected to play all week, and then they fucking didn't. So not that that means anything, but I think Kamara is going to play. It was more just we're going to rest him this week because he needed a couple extra days. They need him to play. They need him to be successful. You all right over there?
What do you call it? I'm being childish.
Oh no, Trevor, I did it. Hey, come on, I got a couple of those. I had the Urban Meyer line. I'm trying over here.
I'm just being childish.
What's wrong with that?
My humor.
Semen.
We have. God.
I love it. We broke Stephen.
Yeah, a wide receiver. Is that where we?
Yeah, you're up on wide receivers.
Okay. Wide receiver, I'm going to go Brandon Cooks. He continues to fly under the radar. His last game against Jacksonville goes for 5 and 132. Excuse me, that's incorrect here. Rams 6 for 83, I believe. Or it was the Dolphins 6 for 56. All his games are out of order. This is the weirdest damn thing. But I mean, he just continues to produce in that just god awful offense. And it should be no different going up against Tennessee. That even though they might be 7-2. Again, like we mentioned, there's a lot of holes on that team, and they are not that great defensively. And Brandon Cooks should get his fair share of opportunities, even in junk time, if it does come down to it, which it very well may. On the sit side, oh man, I'm gonna go back to the well of sitting a group. And this is more or less based on the situation of this defense has been very good at stopping this specific type of wide receiver, and that's the Colts and Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. I don't like either of them this week. They've been really testy going back and forth in terms of even being an option. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders a couple of weeks ago throwing up a goose egg of his own. You got Cole Beasley dealing with a rib injury. And again, the athleticism of the Colts linebacking core is one that you don't want to mess with against these shiftier wide receivers like Sanders, like Beasley. Really don't like either of them. That being said, I think Diggs has a good week against the Colts.
Good call. I like that. Yeah, because I put that comment up here for Bob. I like T. Higgins out of those three.
Yep.
That's the play, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree.
No, I absolutely agree. The target share that Higgins is getting, you can't turn that down, and you can't put that on your bench.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. There you go, Bob.
All right, who we got?
We just talked about him. T. Higgins is my start this week against Las Vegas. I just like that. I even had Hunter Renfrow in my start, but out of those two, T. Higgins is my guy. I just love that, that target share. Raiders secondary outside, they're going to be dealing with Chase. I think that means Higgins is going to eat. He had a slow start coming through. Another guy that I like is Devonta Smith. I think he's definitely made that jump the last 2 weeks, over 20 plus points. And they're playing against New Orleans. Him and Jalen Hurts are definitely locked in. And we definitely like talking about that. Well, I know I do, is that connection between the wide receiver and quarterback. On the sit side of it though, I'm going to go Chargers versus Pittsburgh. I'm going to sit Mike Williams. I think, dealing with the knee injury, we talked about him before, just trying to earn that money. I think right now he's a guy, obviously he can blow up and go off if need be. But at the same time, he's hurt. And I think it's a little bit more significant than they thought. And there's a chance that his production is going to be affected by that. And so for that perspective alone, playing against Pittsburgh, that I think regardless of who's playing, they're going to mop the floor with them. I just think that means you may see him sit, he might actually get a bit more bench time, and you may see other guys do well in that game. Keenan Allen will probably outperform Mike Williams for one, and two, I just think Mike might actually not play that much. So
Yeah,
those are my two. That's my start and sit.
Instead of grabbing for the bag, I think Mike Williams is just trying to hold on to whatever bag he has left at the rate that his season is falling downhill with the way that the last few weeks have gone after a relatively hot start to the season for Mike Williams in that Chargers team as well. Tight end, who you got?
I like Hunter Henry against Atlanta. Good matchup. I just touchdown machine. Big fan of his. I don't know what else to say about that. There's a lot of tight ends I actually like, a lot of great matchups. We talked about Conklin. I talked about Conklin early against Green Bay. But the guy that actually I'm going to sit is a guy you talked about last week, Dan Arnold, from Jacksonville, going against the Niners. Speaking of Tyler Higbee, he didn't do all that well. I attribute some of that to the San Francisco 49ers defense. There was a drop and some things, but to that, I'm staying away from him this week. He's going to be my sit on the tight end side of things. But I could talk about tight ends all day, apparently, which is a great soundbite for Shane. So
you've given him a couple good ones tonight. So
I'm going to pass it over to the urban man, bang bang, Mr. Johnson on the tight ends over here. What do you got?
I'm I don't want to be a homer, so I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go and expect he's been very, very volatile, but CJ Uzoma with the Cincinnati Bengals, he's been very solid on certain weeks, and the Raiders are not great against tight ends. They are very bad against tight ends. We call them the second worst in terms of points allowed to the position. Wouldn't shock me if that keeps up at the game against here with the Bengals, and what Joey Burrow coming off the bye can also do. They also give up the second most yards per game as well. So definitely want to cash in there on a cheaper play after he's put together some pretty solid games overall. The guy, I want to just wave the white flag on him because I think a lot of people got really excited about him after his first game, and then it's just kind of been a whole lot of meh. And that's Zach Ertz. Not feeling the matchup here for Ertz in this one. And Seattle, they're middle of the road against tight ends, but again, Zach Ertz, it's obvious that he just doesn't have the wherewithal that he used to with the Eagles, and it just hasn't been a very pleasant last couple games for him as well in a Cardinals uniform. I mean, like I said, he gets off to that hot start, and then here we are with 4 for 42, a 3 for 27, 4 for 46. I think that's the ceiling. I don't think there's a whole lot going on there. And again, Seattle is I don't know. I think we saw a lot better of a defense against the Packers and what they are actually capable of doing. And that's what you're going to see down the stretch here. And it's going to keep Ertz at bay if you're going to reach that far down the tight end well to try and pick up some points this week. A lot better options there at the position.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good analysis, Mr. Johnson. Stay away from Jared Cook this week too. I'm just throwing that out there. After Hawkinson 0, he's got the same matchup. I'm thinking, that's what Hawkinson was dealing with, and not just Jared Goff's shitty quarterback play. But it's here nor there. One target. Are you fucking kidding me, Goff? What the fuck, asshole? Sorry.
They might have actually been able to win a game.
Dude, I love in our TTNL league, right? I get 65 points out of a possible 65 points for like GM of the week, but I got the lowest scoring fucking team. I'm like, this stupid fucking shit. Anyway, go ahead.
You mentioned this one in the comments, but we'll just mention it here as
Yeah.
well. Trade Fournette for James Conner and
All day.
Patterson. Yeah, if you're getting Conner and Patterson, that's a no doubter. Bob with Dawson Knox or Pat Freiermuth.
It's a tough call. I like them both, actually. I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, I would say if Ben plays for the Steelers, I'd lean Freiermuth
Against the Chargers, yeah.
I
Their
think
defense
that's
has been sus.
yeah, and they've really been suspect against tight ends. It's been more of the wide receivers. They've been able to shut down those deeper passes down the sideline. So yeah, I would keep an eye on that and then make the decision from there. I believe we had one more question in here. I might be wrong.
We did somewhere. I'm going back.
Yeah, I gotta try to scroll.
Well, they're talking about Jarvis Landry too. Do you think he gets 60 yards this week? Are you trying to hit that for FanDuel, Bob? Or your max? Are you trying to do like a bet? Like, you know,
he's
I don't know.
Got his over/under plays going here.
I love those, man. I don't mind those. Those aren't bad.
You know, they're playing the Lions. I don't think they're going to have to pass much. I think this is a Nick Chubb game.
Yeah. Chubb's back,
more
right?
than anything else. He should be. He's on the COVID list. I would assume that he would be back. Man, I struggle with the 60. I really do. I don't know if the volume is going to be there for what the Browns will probably need to do in order to win this game. I think Hockenson last week off waivers.
Are you serious?
Who dropped? Well, he's
been bad over the last. I mean, he has not been good. You know.
Yeah,
I'd start him.
Man, that's just kind of shocking. That's a shocking one there. I mean, yeah, after the goose egg, kind of see it, but man, that's surprising, especially the week before. You know, he put up 10 catches for 89 yards, and I mean that's wow.
Yeah,
that's surprising. That's surprising. Future
Mike Davis.
Trade
we talked about him earlier.
Got him.
I mean, if you get somebody to trade, if you could trade him, great. But I don't know what you're really going to get for him, you know?
Yeah.
With that being said, drop that motherfucker.
Yeah, I can't imagine that he's got an in to getting some decent carry shares down the
something
down the
else to think
here.
about. I read. I don't know how much credibility, but how much to really, you know, have this weigh on your mentals, if you will. This week is Christian McCaffrey's hamstring acting up in last week. I don't know what the skinny is this week so far. Have you read anything about that? That was something that I had come across, and I was like, shit, you know.
I haven't seen anything. I do appreciate them keeping him out of the better half of the second half there when the game got out of hand and not risking the re-injury. Man, I don't know. I think he should be okay. I would hope.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not too worried about it, I guess. It's the best way to put it. So we'll see. Who knows? Knowing my luck, he'll be out for the rest of the season because of a foot or some other injury.
I got Chuba, so hey, I need it.
All right, last question for Max here. Will Barkley be back? If you guys, will he have a high production week going up against Tampa Bay? He'll be back. I don't know about high production, but the rest
there's
of
no
Vita
Vea over there either, though, man. So I think
that's true. They've been losing people left and right. I mean, I think he's a must start if you have him. I mean, you've been holding on to him this long.
Yeah, you got to play him.
What are you waiting for?
You probably drafted him in the first round too, you know.
Yeah, and he'll be back. He'll be back this week.
Definitely.
I think all indications are that he will be suiting up on Sunday. So hopefully that gets him back on the right track and makes a lot of happy fantasy owners once the season gets rolling down the stretch
Yes,
here,
sir.
and maybe gear up for a playoff run as well if you were able to withstand that very long gap of playing time between the beginning of the season and now for Saquon Barkley. Well, that's going to do it here for One Up Fantasy on this lovely Tuesday evening. We got Keeping It 100 tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. Olin Kreutz stopping by for some Bears conversation, as it is Draft Dr. Phil and Shane, the smartest man. Phil back after a week off from the sickness. Hopefully he's feeling better.
I saw him today at work, man. I felt bad. I'm hoping, I'll let him get into it tomorrow, but I hope he's doing okay. He was struggle busting it. He was I came back and he was gone. So, I knew he wasn't feeling all that hot, but he had some stuff he had to take care of. So nonetheless, you'll be there tomorrow night.
All right. We'll be the crew and everybody else, yourself included. And
yes, sir.
Then it is Bears and Ravens on Sunday. Oh, lots happening, but we'll be back next Tuesday, same time, same place, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, with more fantasy conversation as we creep ever closer to fantasy playoffs. This week, it begins week 15. If you're in 6-man or 6-team playoff formats, I guess. So you're 12, 13, 14. You got 3 weeks after this one. Start making
4
moves.
weeks to go, mate. Yeah, trade deadline is coming up. Dynasty leagues, you may get a bunch of Mac Jones offers if you own him, like I did this week, because everyone seems to want him lowballing my ass. But nonetheless, I hope everybody has a great week. Looking forward to seeing everybody next week so we can talk about what's going on in week 12 here at One Up Fantasy. Stephen, I appreciate everything, and I just, in the chat, Logan had put in there that Cameron Bragg is apparently in the ICU with COVID. And if that is the case, not that Cameron or that Logan would lie, that's fucking horrible. And I just want to send some thoughts and prayers out to Cameron and his family. I know he does a lot of things out there for his loved ones. And I know him being in his situation makes it harder for some other people. So I hope his support network is really helping out down there. And so just thinking about Logan and his family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Best wishes and speedy recovery as well. Yeah. Not a fun thing to go up against, and again, taking people each and every day. So definitely don't want to short it for what it has become and how it's affected everybody's lives here over these last almost 2 years now. So crazy to think that it's almost been that long, but here we are with the reality of the situation. So until next Tuesday night, we do thank you again for tuning in or listening. If you're checking us out on the podcast, we'll be back next Tuesday. Have a great rest of your week. Go Bears, and have a wonderful evening. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.